For Western civilization, Greece is the spiritual source. To speak of the West, one must begin with Greece. Two great pillars of Western civilization today are Greco-Roman civilization and Christianity. Strictly speaking, Greece is the source, and Rome is the successor. Greek civilization is not the oldest in human history. It was itself influenced by Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilizations, eventually forming a morphology uniquely its own. However, its contributions and influence on human history far exceed those of Egypt and Mesopotamia. Counting from the Minoan civilization of Crete to the death of Alexander the Great, Greek civilization inherited 1,700 years before declining, but its legacy influenced Europe for the next 2,000 years. In the context of the West rising to become the mainstream civilization of the world today, it has influenced billions of people globally. When speaking of Greece, even those uninterested in history can casually recount a few Greek myths, such as the Trojan War, the story of the Golden Fleece, or gods like Zeus, Poseidon, Apollo, and Athena. In every aspect of our lives today, one can easily find traces of Greek civilization. So let us see, what marks did Greece ultimately leave on our lives? If there were no Greece, today when humans look up at the starry sky, looking at familiar constellations, they would feel confused. Because the constellations in the sky, such as Orion the Hunter, Andromeda, Ursa Major, Great Bear, Ursa Minor, Little Bear, Leo, Lion, Cancer, Crab, would all bear different names, or perhaps no names at all, because the names of these constellations all come from Greek mythology. Similarly, if there were no Greece, the classic green logo of Starbucks coffee that people drink today would not exist, because this logo was inspired by the story of the Siren Mermaid in Homer's epic. Legend has it that her singing possessed a magical power irresistible to sailors. Starbucks borrowed this image to express a redefinition of coffee culture, a brand new shaping of the lifestyle of the urban middle class. If there were no Greece, today, when playing poker, people would discover that the image of a king card would change, because the character on this card, specifically the king of clubs in many traditions, is Alexander the Great of Macedonia, the leader among the four great generals of Europe, the king of cavalry. He created the largest Macedonian empire of the time, spanning from the Aegean Sea to the Indus River, stretching across the three continents of Asia, Europe, and Africa, simultaneously bringing Greek civilization to the lands he touched, opening an era praised by posterity as the Hellenistic period. The inventor of poker used this method to pay respect to Alexander, the other three cards being King David, King Charlemagne, and King Julius Caesar. Today, graduates of regular medical schools all memorize a solemn oath. This oath is a vow that doctors must read when taking office, highly ritualistic in nature, originating from Hippocrates, the ancient Greek physician honored by posterity as the father of Western medicine. When traveling to Europe, the Americas, and other Western countries, we will see large architectural works with similar styles. Especially public buildings like churches, city halls, parliaments, and courts are basically designed referencing Greek architectural aesthetics, the most typical element being the Greek column structure. If there were no Greece, at famous museums that people must visit when traveling abroad today, such as the British Museum in London, the Louvre in Paris, the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, the Vatican Museums in Rome, the Metropolitan Museum in New York, the quantity and value of the collections would decrease significantly. Familiar works such as the Venus de Milo, the Winged Victory of Samothrace, the Parthenon marbles, reliefs, the Laocoon statue, and Renaissance artworks influenced by Greek culture would not exist. Naturally, there is also the Olympics held every 4 years. The ancient Olympics were a true gathering of peace. The Greek world was constantly at war. But for the few days the Olympics took place, all Greek city-states strictly observed an armistice discipline, thanks to which rare peace was achieved. Not only that, the Olympics also assumed the function of recording chronology. Today we can judge exactly in which year an event in the Greek world occurred thanks to the Olympics. Ancient Greece did not have a common calendar system. Historical records of major events often use the method of the 10th year after the Youth Olympiad to record dates. From its inception to its end in the late Roman Empire period, the ancient Olympics were held a total of 292 times, spanning 1,169 years, providing valuable supporting data sources for the historical research of later generations. These are all marks of Greece, resembling fragments scattered in human life, but essentially, they are a complete set of heritage that Greece left to the world, including philosophy, jurisprudence, political science, ethics, and aesthetics, forming a complete and great frontal portrait. Today, the mainstream flow of civilization and ideology in the world is Westernization, and this portrait of Greece is the original appearance of Western civilization. So let us see, what is its original appearance? Speaking of Greece, one cannot fail to mention the painting The School of Athens. Pictured. This is a representative work of the Western divine painter Raphael, dubbed the #1 painting of the Renaissance, currently kept in the Stanza della Segnatura of the Vatican Museums, serving as a key treasure of the institution. This huge masterpiece utilizes Greek basilica architectural space, with the background featuring the sun god Apollo and the goddess of wisdom Athena from Greek mythology, symbolizing peak art and wisdom. In the very center of the painting, Plato and Aristotle stand on two sides, representing the two peaks of Greek thought. Their shared spiritual teacher Socrates is debating with people in the crowd on the left. Opposite him are Alexander the Great of Macedonia, the Greek historian Xenophon, and Antisthenes, the founder of Cynicism. On the steps, an old man lies comfortably. That is the most important scholar of Cynicism, Diogenes, who once questioned Alexander the Great. Below the steps, a solitary figure is deep in thought. That is Heraclitus, the founder of naive dialectics, whose famous quote the whole world is familiar with, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." To the left of Heraclitus is a group of people, including the great philosopher Parmenides, who proposed the concept of being, the mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras, and Democritus, the forefather of Western scientific concepts and the enlightener of atomism. In this painting, you can also see Thales, the first philosopher of ancient Greece, Anaximander, who proposed the concept of the arche, origin of the world, Zeno, the founder of Stoic philosophy, Euclid, author of the Elements of Geometry, and the atheist philosopher Epicurus. A convergence of stars, a gathering of sages. But that is not all. In this painting, you can also find many famous Western scholars of later generations, such as the outstanding female scientist of the ancient Roman period, Hypatia, the Renaissance architect Bramante, and Ptolemy, who proposed the geocentric theory. There are even those belonging to other faiths, such as Zoroaster, the founder of Persian Zoroastrianism, not to be confused with the dog worship religion, currently fashionable today, and the great Islamic scholar Averroes. Therefore, if there were no Greece, the world history of thought, political history, history of science, and history of culture and art today would lack a massive segment. The millennial transmission of Western thought would be completely broken. The continuation and inheritance of Western civilization could not be discussed, and the illustrious Rome later on would not be the appearance we see today. Furthermore, if there were no Greece and Rome, posterity would not have the so-called Renaissance, because the Renaissance was precisely the revival of ancient Greek and Roman civilization, completely liberating humans spiritually from the shackles of medieval theocracy. The glory of ancient Greece and Rome, after being submerged for thousands of years, once again reached a peak experience. Moreover, because of the rich legacy of Greece and Rome, after the Renaissance was completed, the West welcomed tremendous development in reason and science. The immense contributions of great names like Galileo, Descartes, Newton, and Leibniz in basic sciences, such as mathematics and physics, built a solid foundation for the 500-year edifice of Western science and technology. Philosophy continued to develop, starting from the Age of Discovery, passing through the Reformation and the Enlightenment movement. Theocracy and monarchy receded, and a series of illustrious names like Voltaire, Rousseau, Spinoza, Hume, Kant, Hegel, Fichte, Feuerbach promoted the rapid development of Western spiritual concepts. Society and the nation rose, and reason began to awaken. Regarding politics and law, starting from Hobbes, then Montesquieu, Locke, Max Weber, Edmund Burke, Tocqueville, John Stuart Mill, and a large group of elite sages during the American independence period in 1776 critically absorbed and upgraded the entire legacy of Greece and Rome. The basic institutions of democratic nations that everyone is familiar with today, such as the jury system, bicameral parliament, representative democracy, and separation of powers, were all perfected and developed during this period. And the earliest origins of these institutions can all be traced back to the Greek and Roman periods. This is the frontal portrait that Greece left us, constituting the essential content of Western civilization today, and also occupying the position of the mainstream civilization in the world. So where did it ultimately come from, and how did it develop to this level? Let us look forward to the next parts.